Hello everyone. Today we'll be discussing a set of questions from Current Affairs 2020 Economy and Banking Concepts Test 71. So let us straight away move to the first question. The first question says which country has launched the world's first blockchain based carbon trading exchange? So answer is in front of you. Answer is second option. Answer is Singapore. So the country that has launched the world's first blockchain-based carbon trading exchange is Singapore. It's a small country in Southeast Asia. Uh, the company that has launched this is Singapore-based Air Carbon Pte Limited. Please write it down. Air Carbon, AIR, AIR, Carbon, CARBON, PTE, PTE Limited, Air Carbon PTE Limited. Now this PTE is a short form for private in Singapore. So in India we have private limited, PVT limited. So you would have seen a lot of companies ABC private limited. So private limited when it is written as PVT. In Singapore private is written as PTE. So that's the acronym that they follow. So this Air Carbon PTE Limited is the company that has launched this. But as far as this question is concerned, what are the various other things that you're expected to understand? One obviously is the concept of carbon trading or carbon credits in general as far as they are concerned. What do you mean by carbon credits? Are they tradable? What is the current situation in the world? That's one concept that you need to understand. Second is this entire issue of climate change. So I'm sure you would have seen a lot of questions coming with regards to climate change. So there is this big need for us to delve deep into this issue of climate change. Which are the organizations which are working to mitigate the effects, negative effects of climate change? Which are the countries which are taking different measures and so on. So let us delve into this subject. To start with, it will be easier for us if we consider timelines. And when we consider timelines, I want you to make notes. So please write down the heading climate change. Please write down the heading climate change. And now we'll discuss some pointers. Please write down year 1988. Year 1988. So we'll go from 1988 onwards. Obviously, there were some climate summits before that as well, but year 1988 was very significant because just write down creation of IPCC. Creation of IPCC. I'll go slow here. 1988 creation of IPCC, all in caps lock. IPCC. Please write down the full form in bracket. Intergovernmental Panel Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. So this is the full form of IPCC. Who created this particular panel? So it was created by two important bodies. Write down the names of two bodies. Created by, write down, created by World Meteorological Organization. World Meteorological Organization, bracket we can write the short form WMO. The acronym is WMO, World Meteorological Organization, and UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. UNEP, United Nations Environment Program, UNEP. So now pause for a minute, listen to what I'm saying. So in 1988, this Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change was created by these two important bodies, World Meteorological Organization and UNEP. What was the objective or purpose of creation of such a panel? It will accumulate all the scientific data available, basically a research organization that will come up with scientific evidence and figures to suggest whether there is some issue of climate change happening and how adversely it would affect the various countries of the world. So whether it's a serious concern or not has to be established scientifically. So who will be the body that will do this? This was the body that was created. Having accumulated sufficient amount of evidence and understood the process of climate change, there was this now need of taking countermeasures. So think about it this way: there is an issue of climate change, but obviously there have to be some steps taken by different countries or the governments so that we are able to mitigate those negative effects of greenhouse gas emissions or sudden changing of climate, more cyclones, and so on and stuff. So what measures to be taken? Different countries of the world have to get involved, and therefore over a period of time another important body was created. Please write down the name. It took 6 more years. Write down the timeline: year 1994. Year 1994. creation of creation of creation of UNF UNF triple C, all in caps lock, acronym UNF triple C, UNF triple C. Now write down the full form: United Nations Framework. United Nations Framework. I'll repeat: United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. Convention on Climate Change. I repeat: Convention on Climate Change. So this UNFCCC, as it is sometimes called, is nothing but United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. How many countries are currently parties to it? 197. Please write down the number: 197. 196 countries plus EU as a whole, European Union. 196 are parties to it. Now, given this large number of countries in this particular UNFCCC, what does this do? As the full form says, it is a convention. Now, what is a convention? Convention is a meeting of a particular group. So basically, this group meets every year to decide what are the various countermeasures that can be taken to mitigate the negative effects of climate change or global warming. So understand, one body IPCC was created to accumulate data, do research, and suggest that climate change is negatively affecting. Then there is a body where group of countries will come together and decide what measures to be taken. This body is UNFCCC. It meets every year. That is, it is called a convention. Now, this convention or the meeting that happens is also called as Conference of Parties. Please write it down. It is important because sometimes question may come. Just giving this acronym COP. So write down Conference of Parties. The convention that happens every year. This meeting is called as Conference of Parties. COP. Conference of Parties. And COP1 happened in the year 1995. COP1 happened in the year 1995. And as I said, it happens every year. So second COP or COP2. So I hope you have written COP1 happened in the year 1995. COP2 obviously then happened in 96, then 97 and so on. And in December 2019, we had the 25th Conference of Parties. 25th. You can count the number of years from then. 25th COP in the year 2019. Where was it held? Please write down the location. There might be a question on this. 25th COP held in Madrid, Spain. 25th COP held in Madrid. Madrid is the capital city of Spain. Spain. Fine. Write down 26th COP. 26th COP is scheduled to be held in Glasgow. So just write down in short: 26th COP dash 26th COP dash Glasgow. GLASGOW. It's a place in Scotland, United Kingdom. Glasgow, a place in Scotland. Glasgow, place in Scotland. So this is about COP. Now we have understood that these countries met to decide on initiatives that could be taken, and one important landmark in this entire timeline therefore happened after 3 years since 1994. So 1994 UNFCCC got created. Please write down the next timeline in that sequence: year 1997. Year 1997. Year 1997. Kyoto Protocol. Kyoto Protocol was adopted. KYOTO. Please write down. KYOTO. Kyoto. Kyoto Protocol was adopted. Kyoto is a place in Japan. So this is the place where this convention was held. Every year the location changes. So in 1997 the COP was held in Kyoto, and there a protocol was adopted. This protocol had some binding restrictions on all the developed countries of the world to reduce their carbon footprint, to reduce their greenhouse emissions, and to make sure that they do sufficient amount of efforts to reduce the carbon emissions in the atmosphere. So when I say this was adopted, it was in general agreed on the first principle that this should be done. It was signed and ratified 8 long years later. So please write down the next timeline. Year 2005, when the Kyoto Protocol came into effect. Year 2005, when the Kyoto Protocol came into effect. So although it was adopted, agreed in basic principles in 1997, it got adopted in the year 2005. Now you can understand the slow process of countries taking efforts to really tackle this issue of climate change. So 2005 was the year when this was ratified, and it had to be in effect till 20. So when it was ratified and signed, there was a deadline given. The deadline was the year 2020. So Kyoto Protocol comes to an end in the year 2020. Please write down this as well. Ratified in the year 2005, Kyoto Protocol comes to an end. It will end now. Kyoto Protocol will no longer be valid in the year 2020, which is this year. So when the meeting happens in 2020, this year, sometime later, maybe in Glasgow, maybe online, you never know, this particular Kyoto Protocol will end or cease to exist as a protocol. Therefore, in between, there was this big need to address the shortcomings in Kyoto Protocol and to see and evaluate whether measures have actually been taken or not. So in 2015, something called as, so another important year in between, please write down 2015, something called as Paris Agreement was reached. Paris Agreement was reached to replace the Kyoto Protocol that would end in 2020. So at least the countries realize that it takes a lot of time for a particular protocol to get one adopted and then get ratified. So they adopted it in 2015. Please write down 2015. Paris Agreement was adopted, and it would come into effect 5 years later, the moment Kyoto Protocol ends, that is in 2020, after Kyoto Protocol ends. So it's a replacement to the Kyoto Protocol. So question might come, Kyoto Protocol is replaced by which agreement? Answer is Paris Agreement. Kyoto Protocol and Paris Agreement refer to which convention? So UNFCCC and so on. All these questions might be very useful. So we are discussing it in the form of a story so that we really understand the essence of it and it's easier for us to remember. So this much part I hope is clear. Now realize that when there are restrictions on the amount of carbon footprint or the greenhouse gases that developed countries and to some extent developing countries can emit in the atmosphere, there is this also huge need to motivate and give an incentive if a country is able to overshoot its target. I'll explain this in an example. So carbon trading is a difficult topic to understand. Please be patient while you are listening to this. I'll take a hypothetical example. I repeat, it's an hypothetical example, and therefore the number of emission units that I'm considering are simply UNIT, some number, so that we understand better. So I'm taking example for two countries. Let's say the target reduction for United States as far as carbon emissions are concerned was, let's say, 50 units. Again, hypothetical example, US is expected to reduce, let's say, carbon emissions by 50 units, and India is expected to reduce carbon emissions by 10 units. 10 is the number that India has been given, 50 is the number that US has been given, because US is already developed. Now, given that India has, suppose, already achieved this target now in the given time, India has achieved the target of reducing the footprint by 10, and India also feels that if it pushes more, maybe it can achieve a target of, let's say, 15 units, 5 more units it can reduce. But will India do so? No. Why not? Because there is a cost associated with it. So to be able to create policies that are environmental friendly, more costs have to be incurred in development of those products, approval of those projects. Companies need to incur extra cost, and therefore going uh, pro environment is not really economically feasible, which is the reason countries did not follow these protocols earlier. Therefore, even though if India tries and pushes, there is this economic or financial cost associated. Therefore, India will not have any incentive to reduce carbon emissions, which, by the way, would be very good for the environment and the world overall. If India is able to achieve the target of 15, even though it was given only a target of reduction of 10 units. So, there should be some incentive. So, this Kyoto Protocol included a condition that if a country is able to achieve its target and if it is able to reduce emissions over that particular limit, let's say India is able to achieve 15 units, so these extra 5 units can be traded. What do you mean by traded? Indian government can sell these 5 extra credits to US or maybe any other country which is willing to buy. Now, why will a country want to buy credits and pay some money for those credits that India has earned? Because those countries may not be able to achieve their own targets. For example, for US, we decided that the target would be 50. US has signed the treaty that it will agree to a reduction of 50 units, but it is only able to achieve, let's say, 45. So to make sure that it is considered a responsible country and it is able to meet its target, it will say, okay, I'll buy the remaining 5 credits from India. India has extra 5 credits and I'll pay a particular sum. So in which ways I was going to incur extra costs to create policies and products which are pro-environment, I'll rather buy it directly from India. So this way, overall target for the world is also achieved. India is happy, US is happy, everybody is happy. It's a win-win situation for all. This is called as carbon trading, where countries who have overshot their target can sell their credits that they have earned. Now, there is another big issue with this. Over a period of time, countries like India, Brazil were able to accumulate a lot of carbon credits, and now they are unsold because they initially believed that countries would buy them, but not much response came from countries that were not able to meet their targets, and as a result, there are a lot of accumulated credits. Now, what happened in Paris Agreement? Countries wanted that even if Kyoto Protocol comes to end, in Paris Agreement these credits should be allowed to be traded. There is still a deadlock on this. And one more important piece of information: in the year 2018, the United States of America backed out of this particular Paris Agreement. So, under the leadership of Mr. Donald Trump, USA backed out of Paris Agreement, and therefore there is this big deadlock still remaining of what will happen to those accumulated credits with countries like India and Brazil. Approximately close to what $750 million credit is available with India as far as carbon emissions are concerned. So then it all the negotiations go for a toss if something like this happens. But this is the current situation and scenario as far as climate change is concerned, as far as carbon trading is concerned. I hope this much basic understanding of what exactly is happening currently in climate change should be sufficient for us to understand questions related to it and prepare accordingly. Let's move on to the second question then. So the second question says the 35th ASEAN summit was held in. The 35th ASEAN summit was held in. Answer is in front of you. Answer is option 1, Bangkok, Thailand. Bangkok is the capital of Thailand. Answer is Bangkok, Thailand. Fine. Now, what are the various things that we need to cover in this particular question? One is this 35th ASEAN Summit. This was held in 2019. Recently, few days back in June, last week of June, uh, 36th ASEAN Summit also concluded online. Obviously, because of the COVID-19 situation, it wasn't possible to be hosted in a particular country. The chair or the host was Vietnam. So please write it down. 36th ASEAN Summit. 36th Summit was held online. Was held online in Vietnam. Please write down the name of Prime Minister of Vietnam who chaired this meet online. The opening address was given by the Prime Minister of Vietnam. Please write down the name. I'll dictate the spelling. Please write it down. Nguyen. I'm repeating. Nguyen. Nguyen. N is silent. Nguyen. Zuan. Xuan. Xuan. Zuan. Phuc. 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 I'll repeat. Nguyen. Nguyen. XUN, Xuan Phuc, PHUC, is the current Prime Minister of Vietnam. He chaired this meet. So maybe you can go and take it as an assignment to read more about the statement given. So consider this as an assignment from my side. 36th ASEAN Summit, the statement given by this, but on conclusion of this 36th ASEAN Summit in Vietnam. Obviously, it was not held in Vietnam, it was held online because of COVID-19. But Vietnam was a country that was slated to hold it. Now, as far as ASEAN is concerned, please write down the full form of ASEAN as well. Association of, yes, I know a lot of you already know. Association of, yes, very good for those of you who have been able to answer. Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Please write down the full form. Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Please write down the year of creation, 1967. Date is 8th August. No need to remember that date. Just remember the year, 1967. Founded by 5 member countries. Please write down the founding members. Indonesia. Year is 1967. Countries, I'm repeating, 5 founding members. Currently there are 10 members. So I'll dictate the names of all 10. Don't worry. But first write down the 5 founding members. The first 5 founding members were Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, 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 Philippines, 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 and Singapore. Philippines and Singapore. I'm repeating, the countries are Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, Philippines, and Singapore. These were the 5 founding members. Who are the other countries that are a part of ASEAN? Please write down the remaining 5 names. The remaining 5 are Brunei, 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 Brunei. Then you have Myanmar or Myanmar, Myanmar, Myanmar or Myanmar. Both pronunciations are correct. Myanmar or Myanmar. Previously it was called as Burma. 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 Officially now it is called as Myanmar with its capital as Naypyidaw. No issues. If you remember it, great. Otherwise, Naypyidaw is the capital. Then Cambodia, the other countries. So Brunei, Myanmar, and write down Cambodia. Cambodia. Then you have Laos. Laos. Then you have Laos. And obviously Vietnam, where this 36th summit was held. So Laos, Laos, and then Vietnam. So these are the 10 countries I hope you have written, which are a part of the ASEAN member countries. Are you expected to remember them? Yes. So I'll help you out how to easily remember. It is always a good idea to look at the map. So I hope you are able to look at my mouse pointer. The countries that are highlighted in different colors, I have picked certain portion of the world map so that there is no need for you to get confused. Only the countries which are colored now, except grey, are countries that belong to ASEAN. So I'll just give you a fair idea as to which country is located where. This country in yellow, this is a group of ASEAN countries. Look how close they are in terms of their geography, and therefore this group of 5 countries in fact are very close to each other. You can consider them as closely knit or closely grouped countries. These extra 5 countries are also pretty close by, separated by ocean. So this country in yellow is Myanmar. This country in yellow is Myanmar, Burma. Then this country in light green is Thailand. This country in light green is Thailand. This PPT will be available to you, so no need to make notes or write anything. Just understand. This is Myanmar. This is Thailand. Then you have Laos here, Laos in blue. This country in blue is Laos. This country in green is Vietnam. Somewhere here is Hanoi, the capital of Vietnam. So this country in green is Vietnam. This country in dark blue is Cambodia. So Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia. These are the 5 countries. This country in red is Malaysia. Malaysia. And a country is not visible here, just below here. Please look at the location of my mouse pointer. This dot here represents Singapore. A dot which is not visible on the slide represents Singapore. This country in purple is Indonesia. This half grey part is Papua New Guinea, but nonetheless we are concerned with ASEAN, so this is Indonesia. This country in orange that you see, group of islands here, this is Philippines. 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 And I hope you can see a small black dot here where my mouse pointer is. This small country is Brunei. 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 So group of 5 countries here. Then you have Malaysia, small dot here, Singapore, Indonesia. Then you have Brunei. This red part is combined Malaysia. Then this orange is Philippines. So these are the group of ASEAN countries. If you spend 3 or 4 minutes in trying to visualize countries on a map and then memorize, it is very easy for you to remember. Sometimes you might feel you're spending a lot of time in doing this. Doesn't matter. The return on investment of this particular time would be really useful for you. So you won't need to revise these countries a lot of times, which otherwise you are expected to do, if you are able to understand geographically where they are located and why they are a group of countries that have come together to create a multilateral organization called ASEAN. Fine. Some other bits of information like headquarters. So headquarters are located in Jakarta, Indonesia. Jakarta is the capital of Indonesia. Please write down. Jakarta, Indonesia is the headquarter. Who's the current Secretary General? Please write down the name. Secretary General is Lim Jock Hui. Lim, Lim Jock, Jock, Jock Hui, Hoi, Hui, Lim Jock Hui. Fine. So I believe this much. Again, a question: are we expected to know this much? You can take it two ways. There are few things that I've asked you to make a note of. You're definitely expected to remember them. The other stories that I have built, the explanation in map, are you expected to remember countries in map? No, not really. It would be great if you can, but even if you're not able to remember these on the map exactly, it doesn't really matter. You should be able to at least remember whatever I've asked you to make a note of. Let's then move on to the next question. So the next question is a move in which a central bank decides to simultaneously buy long-term securities while selling short-term securities is termed as, answer is Operation Twist, and it is in news recently. In June itself, there is a lot of news that in July, maybe I think 2nd of July is the date, or the first week of July, where RBI will again follow this. When I say again, in December 2019, Operation Twist was used by RBI. So answer is in front of you. Answer is Operation Twist. Now let us spend some time on trying to understand what do you mean by buying long-term securities and selling short-term securities, and what is this process about. I hope you would have heard of a concept in your previous sessions about open market operations by RBI. So open market operations is one of the most useful tools currently used by RBI to control the money supply in the market. Please write down OMO, open market operations. Open market operations is a tool used by the RBI. Is a tool used by the RBI to control, better word could be manage, fine, to control the money supply in the system or a country. So for example, in India, RBI uses open market operations to control money supply. Now think about it this way. How does RBI do this? So RBI uses a tool called as government securities. Government securities. When they are short term, For example, 91 day get typically called as treasury bills. So if you go to the website rbi.org.in, short-term government securities interest rate is available. So if you click on interest rates tab, you will get a drop-down menu which will give you the list of interest rates currently applicable on 91-day treasury bill, 3-month, 6-month treasury bill, and so on. So 91-day treasury bill and short-term government securities are typically called as treasury bills. Long-term are called as long-term G-SECs, long-term government securities. Now, this move, as the question says, in which RBI has decided to buy long-term securities. By the way, this term is valid across the world. So, US also uses Operation Twist. India uses. So, any central bank which makes use of this particular strategy is called as Operation Twist. I'm taking example of RBI so that we understand it better. So, RBI has decided to take this up again in July. It did in December 2019 as well. So, when RBI or any central bank decides to buy long-term securities, I would want to ask you a very simple question. If there is a lot of demand for long-term securities, because now RBI is buying those government securities, what will happen to the prices of those government securities? Simple economics based question. If there is more demand for a product, the price of the product increases. Very good. So demand increase for G-SECs, price would increase. As a result of this, there is an inverse relation between price and interest rates. So we'll not go deeper into why is there an inverse relationship. That is slightly more difficult for this particular session. But please understand, if there is more price for those government securities, then their yield or their interest rates would go down. So as a result, long-term borrowing will become cheaper. Interest rates will go down. Long-term borrowing will become cheaper, which means if people are interested to buy long-term home loans for, let's say, 10 years, 15 years, then they will be available at lesser rates because of this interference by RBI, intervention by RBI. As a result, more people will be inclined to take those home loans or business loans if they are for longer terms because the interest rate is less. As a result, that money will come into the system as part of money supply, which was earlier with RBI or with other banks. So this money, when it gets circulated in the system, is used in the economy, it will drive consumption, and as a result our economy will grow. So this idea of buying long-term securities, I'll again repeat the steps. Buy long-term securities, increase the demand for securities, price of those securities increases, price is inversely related to yield, yield is nothing but interest rates go down. When interest rates go down, loans become cheaper. When loans become cheaper, people buy more loans, people take more loans, more money comes into the system, economic activity increases, as a result economic growth happens. What is the downside? If this is so positive, then RBI should continue doing this. The downside is inflation. So when there is more money supply, chances are that there will be more money supply. It could effectively lead to more price rise in general. So inflation is a general rise of prices. So it will lead to more inflation. But currently RBI feels that this is the right thing to do, and therefore in July it is proposed that RBI will follow again something called as Operation Twist. So I hope this much information is clear to all of you as far as open market operations are concerned. I hope probably in the last session or in the previous few sessions, a lot of discussions on RBI have happened with regards to the governor, what the deputy governors, values of repo rate, reverse repo rate, CRR, cash reserve ratio, statutory liquidity ratio. All these concepts, I hope you are able to memorize the rates, understand their concepts, because there are good chances that you will have at least few questions, if not more, on these areas. Let's move on to the next question then. Which city has been designated as a member of the 2019 UNESCO Creative Cities Network? UNESCO Creative Cities. So answer is in front of you. Answer is option 1, Mumbai. Not much to discuss as far as UNESCO is concerned. UNESCO is again one of the 15 specialized agencies of United Nations. One of the 15 specialized agencies of the United Nations. In the first question we discussed about World Meteorological Organization leading to creation of IPCC. WMO is also one of the 15 specialized agencies. In previous few sessions again you would have covered some basic specialized agencies of the United Nations. So among those 15, one of them is UNESCO, One of them is World Maritime Organization, one of them is World Bank, one of them is IMF, one of them is International Labour Organization, one of them is Food and Agricultural Organization. Again, do you have to list down and memorize all these 15 in one go? No. But when you attend a lot of sessions, when you hear faculty members speaking the names over a period of time, you'll realize that these are the broad 15 entities that are part of specialized agencies of United Nations, which comes under the organ ECOSOC, Economic and Social Council of UN. Anyways, any other special information about UNESCO? Full form, I'm sure: United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization. I hope all of you are aware of this. United Nations, I'm going fast here because I'm assuming कि आता है. United Nations Educational and Scientific Cultural Organization, UNESCO. The interesting question is which two important countries have left UNESCO in late 2018, start of 2019. Two very important countries of the world have left UNESCO. The countries are United States of America and Israel, because of the anti-Israel policies that UNESCO follow. That is a statement officially from US and Israel. So please write down these two countries. United States of America and Israel are no more members of UNESCO since December late, maybe I think 31st December only, or 1st January 2019. The date is not important, but US and Israel are no more members of UNESCO because of the anti-Israeli policies, not recognizing some Jewish architecture and favoring Palestine, state of Palestine, and all those issues cropped up. Maybe Israel-Palestine issue for some time later. But please remember that again, for you it is important to link all these issues. We in the first question discussed that United States backed out of Paris Agreement. Who was the president? Mr. Donald Trump in 2018. In late 2018, USA backed out of UNESCO as well. Now, I'm sure you would have heard of USA deciding not to continue the funding of WHO as well. So USA is again coming out in a way out of WHO unofficially. It is not wanting to support monetarily the funding that happens to World Health Organization. Anything else with regards to United States? Yes, it pulled itself out of something called as Trans-Pacific Partnership, TPP. So you can just write down country US and write down from which all various important international organizations it backed out of. So one, it backed out of Paris Agreement. Again, all these things happened under the administration of Mr. Donald Trump. So you'll be able to relate to what is happening in international geopolitics when you are aware of what are the various steps taken by US. So backing out of Paris Climate Deal, backing out of UNESCO, backing out of funding for WHO, backing out of Trans-Pacific Partnership. This is all an agenda of Trump administration, which says America first. So when he says America first, he would want to focus on America first and then maybe think about other countries, which is completely opposite of what the previous administrations have done. So previous administrations have shown that US is really the boss and the big brother, and US is taking care of the world as the bigger brother and so on and stuff. This administration is saying that forget about the world, America first. Therefore, all these initiatives have been taken. So one more important recent phenomena: ban on visas, especially the category on H1B visas, which is going to affect Indians the most. So that is again another issue that Trump administration has taken, banning visas, especially the H1B visas. So again, small assignment from my side: read up on that H1B visa ban by US. So I believe this much information is sufficient for this question. Let's move on to the next question. The 25th UN Climate Change Conference was held. We have already covered this. This happened in the year 2019 December. It was, by the way, the longest conference. It lasted from, I believe, 2nd till 15th of December. So this was the longest conference held till date, held in Madrid, Spain. Also remember, 26th conference of parties is going to be held in Glasgow, Scotland. Let's move on to the next question. Which of the following organizations has decided to set up Space Technology Cell in collaboration with ISRO? Answer is in front of you. Answer is Indian Space. Answer is Indian Space Research Organization. Answer is Indian Space Research Organization. IIT Delhi is the organization, and it has done this collaboration with ISRO. Full form of ISRO is, so sorry for that miscommunication. Full form of ISRO is Indian Space Research Organization. Collaboration with IIT Delhi. Now, what are the various things that you're expected to cover for this particular question? One is obviously ISRO full form. Second is when was ISRO founded? Please write down the date. Easy to remember. 15th August 1969. Yes, the date 15th August is easy to remember. Creation of ISRO 15th August 1969. And there are two important space centers under ISRO that you need to not just remember the names but also remember their locations. So write down ISRO, make a dash, and write down two important space centers. ISRO, two important space centers. First is Satish Dhawan Space Center. Satish Dhawan Space Center. It is located in Sriharikota. Located in Sriharikota in Andhra Pradesh. You go slightly slow. First space center under ISRO, Satish Dhawan Space Center. Satish Dhawan Space Center. Located in Sriharikota. Sriharikota. Kota. Sriharikota. Place in Andhra Pradesh. The second is Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. The second space center under ISRO, Vikram Sarabhai. Vikram Sarabhai Space Center. This is located in Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala. Thiruvananthapuram in Kerala. Fine. This mission Chandrayaan 2, I'm sure all of you would have heard of it, seen the videos as well. This mission Chandrayaan 2 was launched from Satish Dhawan Space Center. So we have already now understood two important space centers under ISRO. This particular mission Chandrayaan 2, which included India's first moon lander, unfortunately crashed, but still I would consider it as a big success for India to be able to at least reach that stage. So first moon lander was called as Vikram lander. Please write down the date. Sometimes a question comes on this. Chandrayaan 2 launched from Satish Dhawan Space Center, and the first moon lander was called as Vikram. Vikram. And the rover which carried it, first lunar rover, was called as Pragyan. 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 So this much information about ISRO in terms of recent events, Chandrayaan 2, the rover, the other center being Vikram Sarabhai Space Center in Thiruvananthapuram. One important person that you need to remember is the chairperson or chief of ISRO. He was in news not just because of the ambitious mission of Chandrayaan 2, but also there were some very emotional images where our Prime Minister Mr. Narendra Modi was consoling him on the unfortunate failure of that mission. So please write down the name. Chairperson ISRO is Mr. K. Sivan. K. Sivan. Kailas Vadivu. But you don't need to remember the full name. Kailas Vadivu. Pronunciation in fact is also very difficult. So K. Sivan. You can just write down the small name K. Sivan. Sivan. Please remember the name K. Sivan is the chief of ISRO. Fine. Any other organization that you need to remember as far as such organizations are concerned? DRDO. And I hope you already know the full form. Full form of DRDO is yes, say it loud. Defense Research and Development Organization. Defense Research and Development. Defense Research and Development Organization. Who is the chairman there? Who is the chairperson? Please write down the chairperson. G. Satish Reddy. G. Satish Reddy. G. Satish Reddy. Fine. What are these other organizations that are mentioned? IISc is Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore. This was founded by Mr. Jamsetji Tata and one of the kings. but credit has, it is said that Tata's had a big role to play India's growth story. This institute IISc was started by Mr. Jamsetji Tata in 1909. In fact, this person, K. Sivan, that we discussed, chief of ISRO, is an alumni of IISc Bangalore. Is an alumni of IISc Bangalore. What is this CSIR? CSIR is the Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. This is the largest research body in India. Please write down CSIR, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. Started in 1942, before our independence. Largest research body in India. Largest research body in India. Fine. One of the founders was Mr. Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar. The other was Arcot Ramaswamy Mudaliar. But then no need to remember these names. I'm just sharing Mr. Shanti Swarup because there is a Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar prize given under this aegis of CSIR. We don't need to spend much time here, so I'm not spending more time. IIT Delhi is the answer for the collaboration. Any famous alumni from IIT Delhi? Previous RBI governor? Any hints? Yes. Raghuram Rajan is an alumni of IIT Delhi. Then you have IIT Kharagpur. Any famous alumni from IIT Kharagpur? Does anything ring a bell? Google. A famous Indian in Google, Sundar Pichai. Yes, he's an alumnus of IIT Kharagpur. IIT Bombay. Again, there are loads and loads of famous alumni. I'm just giving you names which are probably either in the news very recently or very popular. IIT Bombay, Nandan Nilekani. Mr. Nandan Nilekani is an alumni of IIT Bombay. Many other such special famous people. You can go to Wikipedia, you can go to Google and find out the entire list. There are pages dedicated to notable alumni from these institutions. Not spending much time here, let's move on to the next question then. Under a new supply agreement with the UNICEF, which Indian institution will provide 10 million doses of pneumococcal conjugate vaccine which helps to prevent severe pneumonia every year to lower income countries? Answer is highlighted in front of you. It is Serum Institute of India. Serum Institute of India. I'm sure you would have heard of this particular institute with regards to development of vaccine in association with Oxford and a company called AstraZeneca. The trials have already been conducted and it is expected that we might have success. Hopefully, let's see. So, you might have heard of this institute, Serum Institute of India. It is an institute in Pune. It is an institute headquartered in Pune. Please write down the location. Question might come. Institute headquartered in Pune. Who founded it? Who founded it? It was founded by Mr. Cyrus Poonawalla in 1966. Cyrus Poonawalla. Just to give you perspective, he is on the list of Forbes richest people. Forbes richest people in the world, ranked 165th. 165th Forbes billionaires list. 165th. Mr. Cyrus Poonawalla. Who is the current CEO who manages the operations at Serum Institute of India? Please write down the name, a very popular name. And if in case this vaccine becomes successful, which everybody is hoping it does, then this person is going to become super famous. He is Mr. Adar Poonawalla, ADAR. Adar Poonawalla, ADAR. Adar Poonawalla. His son is managing. He is UK educated. He is the current CEO of Serum Institute. One more important piece of trivia as far as Serum Institute is concerned, it is the largest producer of vaccines in the entire world per year. Please write down this important information. Serum Institute of India is the largest producer of vaccine. Largest producer of vaccine in the entire world. Approximately close to 1.5 billion doses of vaccine are produced. 1.5 billion doses. Now that's a humongous number for one particular company. Fine. I believe this much information is sufficient for this particular question. Let's move on to the next question then. Yes, so the next question says, who among the following won the 2019 World Athlete of the Year? Answer is in front of you. Answer is Eliud Kipchoge and Dalila Muhammad. Which country does this athlete Eliud Kipchoge belongs to? He belongs to Kenya. Please write down the name of the country. He belongs to Kenya. And in which category is he a runner? He is a runner in the marathon category. Marathon, Marathon, marathon category. Now, one important trivia that you need to remember as far as GK is concerned is how do you define a marathon? So, in international athletics, how do you define a marathon? Marathon is a long distance race, which is obvious, having a total distance of 42.195 kilometers. Please write down. Marathon is a long distance race having a total distance of 42.195 kilometers. And this person from Kenya has a world record in this marathon, a record time of 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds. I'll go slow here. Please write down the time. World record currently is held by Eliud Kipchoge. The time is 2 hours, 1 minute and 39 seconds. 2 hours, 1 minute to cover a race of 42.195 kilometers. This person, Dalila Muhammad, she is a 400-meter world record holder, 400-meter world record holder from USA, United States of America. And she currently holds a world record with a time of 52.16 seconds. 52.16 seconds 52.16 seconds for a distance of 400 meters. 400 meters. Just remember these names. They were awarded the World Athlete of the Year 2019. Let's move on to the next question then. In a bank loan application, the borrower's contribution towards the project cost, total loan value as per the government scheme, is known as which of the following? So answer is in front of you. Answer is called as margin money. Now let's spend some time on trying to understand what do you mean by margin money. Let's suppose I want to buy a loan. Let's suppose I want to buy a house and therefore I am applying for a home loan. So I go to a bank. Let's say I go to SBI. So when I tell SBI that I'm thinking of buying this particular piece of land or maybe a particular flat, SBI would ask me what is the price at which the builder is selling. Let's say the builder is selling at a price of 50 lakhs. So I'm wanting to purchase a flat, 50 lakhs. I go to SBI asking that these are my documents, I want a loan. Can you please provide me loan? So SBI says that we will never provide, and in general, banks in India never provide the full value of the project cost. So if the full value is 50 lakhs, no bank will typically provide 100% financing. Why? Because it wants some commitment from your end as well, so that it seems that you're serious. So typical percentages that banks are able to provide loans for vary from 70% to 90%. Generally, these are 80%. So let's suppose when I go to SBI for a loan of 50 lakhs, SBI says that 10 lakhs you will have to contribute from your end, remaining 40 lakhs we will contribute. And the registry and all these documents will be kept with us. This is typically the condition that banks have once you purchase, let's say, a flat. So for 50 lakhs, if 10 lakhs is my contribution, this 10 lakhs is called as margin money. And in terms of percentage, if I see, bank has given me loan of what, 40 lakhs out of 50. So 40 upon 50 into 100, that would be how much? 80%. Very good. So this is called as LTV. LTV, called as loan to value. So if you go to any good bank's website, I'll want you, if you have time available, not very important as far as your exam is concerned, but just to have a basic understanding, you go to any websites and go to interest rates. So if you go to sbi.co.in, MCLR based interest rates for loans, you will see it is typically written for LTV less than 80, there's a particular interest rate. For LTV greater than 80, there's a particular interest rate. So interest rates also vary depending on the contribution of margin money that the borrower has paid. So for any project, be it a home loan, business project, anything, banks never give you the full 100% loan. Some contribution has to be given by the borrower, which is typically called as the margin money. Now, what is collateral? All the other terms are fairly simple. I believe maybe we should spend some time on subsidy and collateral. So, collateral is nothing but a pledge of some security before you apply for a loan. So, pledge of some security would mean you would probably keep your FDs as collateral, or you would keep your any other home registry that you have, so you can keep your documents of your home for buying another home loan as collateral. So collateral is anything that is pledged PLEDG, PLEDGED, pledged as security, that is called as collateral. Second, subsidy, definition of subsidy officially as per WTO is a financial contribution given by a government which confers a benefit. No need to remember this definition, just understand subsidies. It has to be a financial contribution. So if there is a training program organized by government for farmers, it will not constitute a subsidy. It has to be a financial grant. Financial grant given by the government, which means if private entity gives it away for free, it is not a subsidy. Given by the government, which confers a benefit. So that grant has to confer some benefit. For example, a loan does not confer a benefit as such. It's a business transaction. So loan given by government is not a subsidy because it is not conferring a benefit as such to the borrower. So financial contribution given by the government which confers a benefit is subsidy. In India, which is the sector which contributes towards the highest expenditure on subsidies? Fertilizers. So India spends most of its subsidies amounts on fertilizers for agriculture, and agriculture in turn is also tax free. Agricultural income in India is tax free. Let's move on to the next question. Which among the following films won the Golden Peacock Award at the 50th International Film Festival of India? Answer is in front of you. Answer is option 4, Particles. It's a French film. Not much to discuss here. Or the best director went to the movie Jallikattu, option 2. So you can maybe write that down. Best director to Jallikattu. This international film festival is conducted by Directorate of Film Festivals, which is a body under Ministry of Information and Broadcasting in India. So if you want to write it down, I'll go maybe slow. Conducted by Directorate of Film Festivals. Directorate of Film Festivals, which is a body under the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. And they have decided a permanent venue for conduction of film festival. The venue is Goa. The venue is Goa. Venue is Goa. So just remember, best film. Best film is typically given this title called Golden Peacock. Best film is typically given this title Golden Peacock. So Particles won that. Best director went to the film Jallikattu. One another interesting piece of trivia that if you want to remember, the only Indian to be a part of the jury was Mr. Ramesh Sippy. The only Indian to be a part of this jury for the 50th Film Festival was Mr. Ramesh Sippy. I think he's popular enough for you to know about him. Mr. Ramesh Sippy, I think you would have heard of the Bollywood movie Sholay. It was directed by him. Sholay, Sita or Gita, many much more, Shan and so on. So Mr. Ramesh Sippy. Let's move on to the next question. Which among the following is not a founding member of the Global Partnership on Artificial Intelligence? Now this is again a very current question. Few days back this particular partnership happened and China is not one of the founding members. There are close to 13-14 countries. 4 of them are listed on your slide: Australia, India, UK, USA. The other countries include Canada, France, Germany, Mexico. Pronunciation is Mexico, it is Mexico. So Mexico, Japan, New Zealand, then you have Republic of Korea, Singapore, EU. All these are part of. Are you expected to remember these countries? No. But just remember important countries which are not members. So Russia is not a founding member. China is not a founding member. So I want you to remember these two names, which are prominent countries as far as international politics are concerned, but they are not a founding member on the Partnership for Artificial Intelligence. Now this particular body comes under a parent organization called OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. Please write this down. Organization. So this particular partnership would work under the guidance of OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. It is headquartered in Paris, France. It is headquartered in Paris, France. This was also tweeted by our Minister for Electronics and IT. I hope you know the name. This particular piece of information was shared in a tweet as well by our Union Minister for Electronics and IT. Who is he? Yes, Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. Mr. Ravi Shankar Prasad. Enough for this question. Let's move on to the next question then. Who among the following has been conferred with the honorary fellowship of the Society for the year 2019 by the Royal Aeronautical Society, London? So, Royal Aeronautical Society, London, you can consider this honorary fellowship as the highest award that anyone can get in the field of aviation or airspace. This honorary fellowship, you can consider this as the highest award that anyone can get in the field of aviation or airspace. So answer is in front of you. It is G. Satish Reddy. G. Satish Reddy. Does this name ring a bell? G. Satish Reddy. Yes, we had discussed this earlier while discussing ISRO. No, he's not the chairman of ISRO. He's the chairman of DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization. His biggest contribution is with regards to spending almost 3 decades to Indian space, but more importantly, successfully completing something called Mission Shakti. Now, what is Mission Shakti? Mission Shakti is India's anti-satellite program. Anti-satellite, which means India can now destroy satellites with high accuracy and precision. It was demonstrated. India has demonstrated that capability. India destroyed a satellite that was now defunct in 2019, and there was a lot of hue and cry with that as well because elections were about to be held then. So, Mission Shakti is an anti-satellite program. Only 3 other countries in the world have this capability to destroy satellites. Only 3 other countries have capability would be they have demonstrated this capability. They have proven that they have this capability. The 3 countries are easy to guess. Can you guess those countries who, apart from India, have this anti-satellite missile capability? The countries are obviously US, Russia, and our neighbor China. Yes, these are the 3 countries that have demonstrated this capability. Now, given this contribution, Mr. G. Satish Reddy is one person that you need to remember associated with Mission Shakti as well, and got the honorary fellowship. He's the only Indian to receive this scholarship in a period of almost now 100 years. What that this scholarship has been there about. It is so respected, this fellowship, that just to give you perspective, the first fellowship was awarded to the Wright brothers. I hope you know who the Wright brothers were. The Wright, WRIGST. If you don't, please Google. The Wright brothers. The first fellowship was awarded to the Wright brothers. So that's pretty much about it. K7 and other options you can maybe spend some time on. I'll move on to the next question. On which of the following is a high interest income charged by commercial banks? You can answer this question logically as well. Crop loans, will the banks charge a very high interest on crop loans given to agricultural farmers? No. Education loans, does it make sense to charge a very high interest rate? Probably not. Maybe some bit higher depending on the institution that you go to, but not much higher. Option fourth, home loans, vehicle loans, and third option is credit card dues. Answer is in front of you. Obviously, credit card dues. So think about this. Why is this interest high? Because what are credit cards? You don't have money available with you, but you are buying it on credit to purchase anything that you feel like. So it can be a TV, it can be a fridge, it can be a laptop, it can be shoes, it can be clothing, it can be any spend on luxurious items as well. Now, given this kind of spending, there is not a necessity that you probably are someone who strives to save a lot. You are using credit cards, and therefore there is this huge risk associated of you defaulting. If there is this more risk associated with default, then obviously the interest rates will be higher. You will be shocked if you are not aware to know the value of interest rates. For all leading banks, all leading bank credit cards, HDFC, SBI, Citibank, any Standard Chartered, any bank that you think of, the typical interest rates are 3 to 4%. Now, some of you might be shocked. So, 3 to 4% is very less. We had an education loan and the interest rate was 9%. So, why are you saying the interest rate in credit cards is very high, 3 to 4%? 3 to 4% per month, my dear. 3 to 4% per month. Now, if you are good in your quants, you will realize that if you equate it to annual interest rate, it will anywhere range between 36 to 48%. 36 to 48% per annum. Which means if you borrow 1 lakh in 1 year, After interest, it will amount to 1,36,000. That is the rate of interest, which is why credit card companies are able to make so much money. But the other downside is people go bankrupt if they are not able to pay credit card dues on time. Let's move on to the next question then. NBFCs, non-banking financial companies, can accept or renew public deposits. Answer is option first. 12 months is the minimum time and 60 months is the maximum time. One important question with regards to NBFCs that I want you to remember is they are registered under which act? They are registered under Banking Act? No, they are registered under the Companies Act. Earlier it was 1956, now it is 2013. So please remember, a lot of people go wrong in this question. NBFCs are not registered under the Banking Act, they are registered under the Companies Act 1956 when it was earlier, and since 2013 it is now the Companies Act 2013. Fine, not much to discuss here. Let's move on to the next question. Who among the following has been honored as the Billboard's 2019 Woman of the Year? Answer is Billie Eilish. Again, some basic trivia, just remember this name. Billie Eilish, Billboard's 2019 Woman of the Year. 2018 Woman of the Year was given to option 3, Ariana Grande. Ariana Grande. There's a lot of issue with her name's pronunciation. Whatever media pronounces, she is not very happy with. She pronounces it in a completely different manner, but then still media calls her Grande. So I'll follow the same name, Ariana Grande. By the way, she is the most popular celebrity, female celebrity on Instagram. She has the most number of followers in the category of females. She is the most followed female. Ariana Grande, I'm talking about. She won the award in 2018. Billie Eilish won the award in 2019. And in terms of most followed male celebrities on Instagram, currently it is Cristiano Ronaldo. Cristiano Ronaldo, the footballer. Cristiano Ronaldo. Not much to discuss here. Let's move on to the next question. Whom the following Indian startups has featured on the World Economic Forum's list of 100 technology pioneers of 2020? Answer is in front of you. Answer is option 1, Stella Apps. Second is Zest Money. Now, Stella Apps is an Internet of Things based dairy supply chain app. So I hope you have some bit of idea about what is Internet of Things. I'm sure you would have heard or read stories that when you're not at home, maybe you're reaching your home. So before you reach your home, you can just press a remote in your car keys and your ACs in your home will switch on. This is one example. Your refrigerator would know that vegetables are now empty and it will automatically order from Amazon and it would get delivered to you and so on. So all these are basic examples of applications of IoT. So using IoT, there is an entire dairy supply chain uh, app created by this company called Stella Apps, and it has been recognized. Zest Money is another financial services company which allows you to take EMIs, personal loans, which are otherwise very difficult to get when you go to regular banks or NBFCs. So these two have been identified as technology pioneers because they've used technology in their products. CureFit, I'm sure all of you know, is a fitness app. Mukesh Bansal, along with Mr. Ankit Nagori, founded this in 2015. Mukesh Bansal, CureFit. No special mention as far as Stella Apps and Zest Money are concerned. Let's say when it comes to Zest Money, there is a group of 3 people. You don't need to remember the names. Let's move on to the next question then. Who among the following won the 2019 International Children's Peace Prize? There are 2 people who have won this, Divina Malone from Cameroon and Greta Thunberg. Now, one very important personality that you need to be absolutely sure about in terms of awards, achievements is option 4, Greta Thunberg. I hope that you already know a lot of stuff. I'll just quickly use this opportunity to revise in case you have already covered this earlier. If not, make sure that either you make a note or at least make a mental note so that you are aware that these are the things that you have to memorize. So Greta Thunberg belongs to which country? Answer is Sweden. Answer is Sweden. And why is she so famous? Why is she winning so many awards? Because she was a teenager. She's still a teenager, but she started skipping school to protest against climate change in front of Swedish parliament. So she typically took time off on Fridays and she spent that time in front of Swedish parliament protesting against the fact that the government is not taking enough measures to fight climate change. and the slogan that she had, the cutout that she had with her was "School Strike for Climate." This quotation is even important. You might get a question on this. What was the exact quotation used by Greta Thunberg while protesting in front of the Swedish Parliament? Write down the quotation: "School Strike for Climate." This was the board that she used to carry on while not attending school. So some of you might feel it's a very good idea, skip school, go ahead. But it's a very serious issue. She followed practices to reduce carbon footprint, not just in her family, but in the neighbors' families as well, relatives as well. She was pretty serious about this issue of climate change. She started skipping school to protest. Over a period of time, this became a norm. So when other people realized, other students joined her, and this became something called as Fridays for Future. Then she was invited to give a speech in UN as well, which is again a very famous speech. How dare you? How dare you is a famous speech now delivered by Greta Thunberg, and this became an international mass movement. She was in fact nominated for Nobel Peace Prize as well for 2019. She did not win it. Abiy Ahmed from Ethiopia won it for maintaining peace of a 2 decade long war, but she was nominated. She has won the Right Livelihood Award for 2019. Right Livelihood Award is considered as an alternative Nobel Prize. It is considered as an alternative Nobel Prize. So, Right Livelihood Award, this International Children's Peace Prize, she was also the Time Person of the Year 2019. Time Person of the Year 2019. So, a lot of information about this teenager, Greta Thunberg. I hope that you remember all these trivias about her. There's a good chance that there might be a question or two on her. Let's move on to the next question quickly. Which of the following countries has India conducted a joint exercise called Sayo Kaijin at the Chennai port? Answer is option 4, Japan. There is also this. Particular category that we have probably covered in some of the previous. Yes, so in the previous few sessions, I believe we have already covered a lot of joint exercises like Varuna between France and India. Malabar is a trilateral naval exercise between India, US, and Japan. So all these basic information has already been covered in the previous section. Just remember this country, Japan, India, Japan, Sayo Kaijin. Let's move on to the next question. Now, the next question says, which is the only European country where Indians are allowed to travel without a visa? Only European country where Indians are allowed to travel without a visa. Answer is option second, Serbia. Answer is option second, Serbia. Now there are approximately close to 20 odd countries where Indians can travel visa free. The duration is very short. Either typically it is for 7 days or at best it is for 30 days. Some countries allow uh, probably some longer durations as well. Countries include Bhutan, Hong Kong, around 20 odd countries. Don't need to remember any names. This is a news current affairs question, and therefore just remember Serbia is the only European country where Indians are allowed to travel without a visa. And in the previous few sessions, I'm sure you would have covered the Henley Passport Index. Japan is ranked first. India is ranked 84th. India is ranked 84th. What is this passport index? Just to quickly summarize, it tells us the strength of a passport, as in which all countries can this particular country's national visit without the need for a visa. So let's move on to the next question then. With which of the following has the government of Assam signed an 88 million USD agreement to modernize Assam's ferry transport services on the Brahmaputra River? Answer is in front of you. Answer is World Bank. Enough information has already been shared. If not, these 5 banks which are there in your options, you are expected to memorize their headquarters, their CEOs, famous Indians who are a part of this, when were they founded, and everything that is there as far as these particular multilateral organizations are concerned. So full form of AIIB, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. World Bank already been covered. New Development Bank, recently in the last few sessions you've covered that there will be a new president taking over from 7th of July. Assignment for you, please memorize his name. Search it, memorize. Covered in the previous sessions. Previous president was Mr. KV Kamath. IMF, International Monetary Fund. Famous Indian associated with IMF. Famous Indian associated with World Bank. Please make sure that these names are on your tips. So in fact, if a question comes, you should be super confident of marking the correct answer. Last option, Asian Development Bank. So just spending some time on AIIB and option fifth, ADB. AIIB has major partners in China, India, and some other countries. Asian Development Bank has major partners being Japan and US. And Japan and US are not part of AIIB. So understand the stand by US and Japan not to support something where China and India are doing a lot, and to have a major share in some other bank where they are more dominant. So this is again more to do with power struggle between these countries: China, US, Japan, the top three countries of the top three economic powers of the world, so to say. So, anyways, let's move on to the next question. With which bank has the South Central Railways signed an MOU for implementing doorstep banking in 585 railway stations? Answer is in front of you. Option fifth, State Bank of India. Let's move on to the next question. The World Future Energy Summit was held in. Answer is option fourth, Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi. ABU. Option fourth, Abu Dhabi. Now, again, this is a way that I strongly recommend you to prepare your GK. Whenever there is a question on city, location, headquarter, always spend some time on map. There is at least five or six some bit of more information that you'll be able to remember. So this is where Abu Dhabi is, and this circle dot represents that it is the capital of UAE. So capital is not Dubai like most of us assume it to be. A lot of students get this wrong. Dubai is not the capital of UAE. Abu Dhabi is the capital, and near UAE, this region, this bigger country here on the left is Saudi Arabia. Then there is a country called Qatar. Qatar capital is Doha. So Doha round, Doha negotiations of WTO happened in Doha, Qatar. Then there is a small country here, Bahrain. Capital of Bahrain is Manama. So Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Qatar, Bahrain, all these places. Then there is this country called Oman. The capital is Muscat. This is a Persian Gulf and this is a Gulf of Oman. There are a lot of questions on different straits. One very important strait that passes through here is called as the Strait of Hormuz. Starts from Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz. Pronounced as Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz. This particular place is a port called Bandar Abbas. This is in Iran. It's a very famous port. All the oil that we import from Iran, or all the coal, COL, all the coal that we import from Iran comes from this particular port, Bandar Abbas. Fine. So this is in Iran, this is Qatar, this is UAE, this portion here is Saudi Arabia, this is Oman, and there's a small passage here. This particular strait here is called as the Strait of Hormuz, connecting the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman. So this particular Future Energy Summit is held in Abu Dhabi every year. Who is the sponsor for this particular summit? He is the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. Please write down the name. Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. ZAYD. Mohammed bin Zayed Al space Al AL space Al Nahyan 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 Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan. He is the Crown Prince of Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi. Please do not confuse this person with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, which I just misspelled. Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, where this World Future Energy Summit is held, as Mohammed bin Zayed. In colloquial language, local people call him MBZ or MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed. And the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia is Mohammed bin Salman, MBS. That is how it is colloquially called. So I'm not creating acronyms out of thin air. This is how they are called, MBS and MBZ. Mohammed bin Zayed and Mohammed bin Salman. I hope you remember these two names. Let's move on to the next question. Which former Reserve Bank of India governor was appointed the chairman of Delhi-based think tank National Institute of Public Finance and Policy? Answer is option fourth, Urjit Patel. He was the previous RBI governor before Mr. Shaktikanta Das. And this option one, Viral Acharya, was also then the deputy governor. Both of them resigned. It is alleged that the resignation of both these people was because of an issue of RBI autonomy. but obviously there can be no proofs on this. There can only be allegations that there was this deep issue with workings on RBI, and these people wanted RBI to be more autonomous. The government of India was not willing, and therefore, because of these differences, Mr. Urjit Patel resigned as a RBI governor. Anyways, let's move on to the next question. The Union government has recently launched the first nationwide online delivery based gas trading platform named as the Indian Gas Exchange. It is a subsidiary of Answer is in front of you, India Energy Exchange. We have discussed some bit of information on all these exchanges in the previous few sessions. Maybe in future sessions as well, if some detail is required, we'll cover that. As of now, India Energy Exchange is something that you are expected to remember. Let's move on to the next question. This is the last question for today. Banks are not allowed to lend below the base rate. So base rate is the rate below which banks cannot lend money to anyone, but there are exceptions. Which are the exceptions? All these three options are the exceptions. Answer is 4, 1, 2, 3, all of the above. Differential rate of interest advances, loans to banks' own employees. So second and third options are pretty easy. The loans that are given to banks' own employees carry minimal risk because they are employees of bank. They're regularly working there, so there is very less risk of default. Plus, there has to be some incentive given to employees because they are contributing towards the growth of that bank. So, loans to banks' own employees are given at lesser interest rates than the base rate. Loans to banks, depositors against their own deposits are also given at lesser rates. Option 1 is slightly difficult. This is a differential rate of interest. This particular scheme of differential rate of interest was established in 1972 as part of financial inclusion plan to give affordable credit to extremely poor people in the country. Affordable credit to extremely poor people in the category. It includes minorities as well as SCs and STs, scheduled castes and scheduled tribes. So these are given loans at a rate of 4% per annum. Fixed rate of interest 4% per annum. There are obviously certain conditions that the annual family income, understand the figures, very low. Annual family income for rural areas has to be less than 18,000. 18,000 annual family income. For urban areas, it has to be less than 24,000. If families fall below this, then they are eligible for these loans, and the loans maximum limit is also very limited. So maximum loan for housing probably is around 20,000. So they will not get a loan more than 20,000 rupees. But the rate of interest is pretty less. It is 4% only. So that's it from my end. I hope that whatever concepts we have covered in great detail, you're able to regularly revise them, make notes, and attend these sessions sincerely so that you're able to score really well in your GK section. All the best from my side. Thank you.